Members, I'm excited to have a guest today, someone who is quite well versed in how it is that we use the ground. I would say that he's a world expert on swing cat and ground reaction forces, and on top of that, he's Canadian, so this is really good. Scott Lynn, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Actually played the national for the first time last summer. Was out there, had a great time. I didn't grow up too far from you guys. I grew up in the very west end of Etobicoke, almost right in Mississauga. There, I grew up actually playing at Markland Woods Golf and Country Club. My dad was a member there, so I was a junior member there for a while, and then actually moved over to Weston Golf Club, which is even closer to you guys. And I've been a member there since. Probably the mid 90s. So I have a lot of connections to Toronto golf, especially kind of the West End. Then I went to Queen's University, did an undergrad, a master's, and a PhD there. Played on the golf team, was a coach of the golf team, did a lot of golf stuff there. And at the end of my PhD, which was in orthopedic biomechanics, I figured out that I didn't really get fired up every morning waking up and studying arthritis in the knee and gait analysis and stuff like that. So kind of halfway through my PhD, I decided I wanted to try this thing called golf. I wanted to do some golf biomechanics assessments, which really wasn't a thing at the time. This was probably around 2006, 7. And, there were no Dr. Kwans, there was no Sasha McKenzie back then. Like, golf biomechanics really wasn't a thing. So after I finished my PhD, I applied to professor jobs in Canada. So I applied to, I think, Laurier and Waterloo and a bunch of other jobs. And didn't get a job in my own country. Nobody wanted me because I said I want to do golf biomechanics, and they're like, "What? How are you going to get that funded?" And da da da. So I went to start applying to jobs in the States after that. I applied to jobs all over the place in the U.S. And actually got every job that I was offered or that I interviewed for in the U.S. So I got a job in Delaware. I got offered a job in Texas, one in Northern California at Chico State, and then I think I was doing my postdoc at the University of Waterloo at the time, and I had an interview at Cal State Fullerton, which is really near Disneyland. Yeah. It's really near where the Anaheim Angels play, where the Anaheim Ducks play. Had an interview in the middle of January, and I remember leaving Waterloo, and there was snow up to my waist, and it was negative 40. And I flew down to John Wayne Airport, and it was, I don't know what it was, 20 Celsius and sunny and perfect. And I was like, I think I can do this. This is this is where I need to be. Yep. So I've been there since 2008. I have a golf biomechanics lab there. I've been doing like academic research in golf there since 2008, but got really frustrated in the first 7 years of doing golf biomechanics research because everybody does something different. Every golfer that I've ever studied has a different pattern from every other golfer that I've ever studied. And then in 2015, I got connected with this company called Swing Catalyst, who have a commercial product that it's a force plate that measures the golfer's connection to the ground. And through that, I've had access to a lot of the top players in the world. I mean, I would say in the past 12 months, I've worked with Colin Morikawa, Tony Finau, Bryson DeChambeau. Let me think who else. And then before that, I've been worked with Lucas Glover. I've worked with a whole bunch of different players, like really good players. And the thing with really good players, they all do it slightly differently. I've also been connected with a lot of good coaches. Been hanging out with Claude Harmon a bit. So I've been looking at what Brooks Koepka does and what Dustin Johnson does. And, been hanging out with Jason Bale. He works with Lucas Glover. I've been looking at his pattern quite a bit. So I've been able to see a lot of what the best players in the world do. And the key thing is everybody does it differently. And so if you ever have a golf coach or a golf teacher that teaches kind of the same thing to everyone, they might help some people, but they're not going to help everyone.
Absolutely. I totally understand. Now, you've studied all these people, where do you start knowing that everybody's going to be different?
Yeah. So there's lots of different things that I've discovered over time. So a couple of things that are very consistent in good players is what's the maximum amount of pressure shift they get into their trail side during the backswing. And so, if you think about like some of Hogan's work, I think there's like a Hogan book, right, where he's like, you need to be 50-50 at setup. You got to be 80-20 on the backswing. You got to be 80-20 or 80 in the front foot, 20. That's pretty close. It was amazing that Hogan, could know that. That's pretty close to the average on tour. About 80% is the average pressure shift into the trail side on the backswing.
Okay.
But the standard deviation is massive. I've seen everything from 50 to 100% into the trail side on the backswing with really good golfers. And so what is it different about the 50%er and the 100%er? Obviously, there's something different there. But what I did notice, and this really kind of showed up to me, it was, I believe, 2018. I think it was 2018. And this was when the Players was still in March before they moved it, or it was in May. Sorry, this was when the Players was still in May before they moved it back to March. And we used to go to the Players Championship every year to collect tour data because TPC Sawgrass bought one of our plates with tour money because the TPC course. And so their mandate is to help tour players. So they used to bring us in TPC week to collect data and, you know, maybe consult with some of the tour players or whatever. So I was there 2018 and Tommy Fleetwood came in because his trainer at the time wanted some information on how he was using the ground. And it was one of the most impressive displays of ball striking I'd ever seen. I don't know if you've been to TPC, but it's a big range, right? That thing's massive. And I remember I pointed at Tommy on the other end of the range. There's that tree that we're aiming at. So he knew where he was aiming. And, you know, the tree's, whatever, 500 yards away, right? That range is massive. And he hit 5 wedges, 5 6-irons, and 5 drivers. His 5 wedges were right in the middle of the tree, every single one of them. His 5 6-irons were right in the middle of the tree, every one of them. He had 2 drivers right in the middle of the tree. And then he hit one that was like on the left side of the tree. He's like, oh, I pulled that one. And I was like, oh my God, that was insane. So he leaves. And this was the year, you know, this was in May. So in June, he went to the US Open and shot like 62 at Shinnecock or whatever it was. That was the year that he was playing really well. And so I go to those 15 swings and 15 wedges, 15 6-irons, and 5 wedges, 5 6-irons, and 5 drivers. And every single one of them had within 1 or 2%, the shift into the trail set was exactly the same. And so what I learned from that is you should know what your stock swing is. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what club you have in your hand, your stock swing should be the same. And a lot of people, I've presented this all over the world now, and a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Like with an iron, you want to kind of lean it forward, get the low point in front of it. With driver, you kind of want to side bend, hit up on it. Like those are going to be different swings. And I was like, that's not what I'm seeing in the best in the world. In the best in the world, they have a stock. And I know that if you have a stock, you can then adjust if you need to, right? So if you have a stock swing, and you know your stock swing is, I mean, I think Tommy Fleet was like 73% into the trail side every time. And if you know you're into the wind, you're hitting a wedge, you want to de-loft it and flight a little bit. Okay, now you go to 60% into your trail side. That's a difference from stock. Okay. Or you're downwind, you want to hit a big high launch and low spinning. Okay, now I'm going to get about 85 into my trail side. Give me a little side bend, hit it up in the air. That's fine. That's a modification from stock. But what I'm finding is if you don't know what your stock is, you have no idea how to modify. Bingo. And like, think about all the modifications that have to happen on the golf course, especially your golf course, right? With all those humps and bumps and hills and wind and all the stuff that goes on out there, right? So what I'm finding now, and I'm working with a lot of really good college players, and they all have their stats now. They all have their strokes gain stats. And I'll bring a kid in who's like a really good player, and like maybe they're 85% in their trail side with driver and like 75% in their trail side with their iron. Just hitting a stock shot off a flat lie. And if I ever see a 10% difference in shift into the trail side with a good player, I'll ask them, like, what are your stats out of the fairway versus off the tee? And 95 times out of 100, they'll say, well, I gain, I don't know, 4 shots off the tee and I lose 4 shots out of the fairway. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we should make your fairway or your iron swing look a little bit more like your driver swing. And most of the time that helps. Most of the time that helps quite a bit. I would say, you know, again, 95% of the time that will help. And so to me, I think it's the key thing to playing good golf is to know what your stock swing is and know when it gets off, how to get it back. Yeah. And then once you have that down, then you can start working on the modifications that have to come when the ball's above your feet, or there's a little rough behind the ball, or there's a right to left wind, you know, on
start golf nuances, right?
Totally. Like is it 17 with the water down the right, your golf course?
Yeah.
Right. So there's water down the right. Does the wind traditionally blow left to right on that hole? I can't remember.
No traditional winds yet.
They just go all over the place, right?
I haven't been there long enough to know that.
Okay. But let's say you get on 17 and there's a little right to left wind, right? You got to hit your anti-right shot. Okay. And you got to know how to modify your standard to make sure that ball doesn't go right. Okay, cool. I got that shot because I know what my stock is. And so what I'm finding using ground reaction force plates now with really good players is once we know what your stock is and we kind of dial that in, you don't get as far off one way or the other. Because, you know, that's the reason why, you know, Chris Como and Mark Blackburn and all those guys are out there every week because those margins are so fine. And if a guy goes over here, he shoots 75, and he goes over here, he shoots 74, and if the 66s are here somewhere. And the problem is when you go over here and then you're like, what the heck is wrong with me? Like, I got to try this. And sometimes that makes you go over worse. And sometimes, and it's this trial and error period where you finally might get back there. And I find with using technology like force plates, those big shifts don't happen as much. Like I work with a lot of college players where I worked with this kid on my university team, Cal State Fullerton. And I tested him. This kid bombs it. He chips at 185 ball speed. This kid has got so much speed. And his last 2 tournaments before conference, he had a couple bad rounds. And he's like, I can't find my driver anymore. He's like, I'm not hitting it anywhere. I'm hitting these awful shots with it. He comes into the lab, and literally in 30 seconds, I go, well, back in September when you were bombing it, you had a 28-inch stance width. You're now 24 inches. So he's narrowed his stance 4 inches, which changes how he interacts with the ground. And it's funny how feels change over the course of time in a golfer. Because I got him to 28. He's like, there's no way I was this wide back in September. And then I showed him. He's like, I feel like I'm so wide right now. And then I showed him from September, and the number was there. I was like, you can't argue with the number. There it is. And he's like, oh. And if it was just my opinion without the technology, I don't think he would have bought into that.
Right.
But all of a sudden, I convinced him, yeah, that's what you were in September. So he puts his feet that way, and then it's just like 186, 187 ball speed.
And that's incredible because this is a new way we're using technology. Because I remember when I used to work with Flight Scope when it first came out, before TrackMan, it was all about, hey, let's get zeros and optimize, where now we're using technology in a way that, hey, you're hitting it good. We're going to save this file. So when you're hitting it bad, we're going to bump it up against it and say, this is the difference. Because, how many times does the amateur golfer say, I lost it?
Yeah.
I get it all day. Or, they hit 5 shots with 5 totally different ball flights. Hey, what did I do there?
Right.
And you can't answer that question unless you have something to rely on. Like,
totally.
Hey, why am I broke now? Well, you had $1 million before. It's a correlation. So
yeah,
I love the way that guys like you and the experts on the force plates are using this data, not necessarily to give you the fancy new move of the day, but to say, this is how you do it well. And when you don't do it well, this is the difference. So what did I do there? You shifted X% too much. Or not enough.
Right.
I think great.
Yeah. And I think I've really helped a lot of players improving how they practice as well. Because most of the time people will go on the golf course or the driving range with their 5-iron and hit 50 balls or whatever, just searching for it, right? They're just hitting balls and, okay, that one didn't work. I'm gonna try something else. Okay, that one didn't. Okay, let me just, that's absolutely the worst way to learn any skill. And so what I do a lot on the force plate is, like, let's say like that kid. So I widened his stance and it came back, right? He started hitting really good ones. And then I was like, okay, this next one, I want you to go back to 22 inches and hit one for me. And he's like, why would I do that? I've just fixed it. I was like, you need to know what it feels like when the stance gets too narrow. And then you got to know what the ball does when the stance gets too narrow. So you have a fix when you get on the golf course, because it's going to happen, right? Yeah. You're going to go back to your old tendencies for whatever reason, right? And I found in my own game, like I have a 1-year-old son now, so I've played 3 rounds of golf. The last full round of golf I played was in July at the National. So I haven't played since then. It's been forever. Yeah. I play the odd 9 holes in the morning, but I'm not playing a lot of golf. But I do in my lab hit 10 to 12 balls, I don't know, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, and measure it on the force plate. And I'm still striking it great because I know where my things are, like what my stock swing is. And as soon as I get on the plate and I hit 2, and I look at the force plate data, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm not doing. I can fix that really quickly. Right. And then what I call one of the best drills ever to do on the driving range is what I call the Goldilocks drill. So you want to go too hot, too cold, and kind of find the middle.
Yeah.
And so you want to know what it's like. So let's say Tommy Fleetwood knows that he's 73% into his trail side is optimal. He should know what it feels like when he gets 80. And what the ball does when he gets 80. And he should know what it feels like when he gets 65 and what the ball does when he gets 65, so that if that happens on the golf course, which it will, like things are going to go awry. And I think, to me, once you do a lot of Goldilocks drills, the bad shots don't upset you anymore, because you hit a bad one, you're like, okay, that's okay. I just didn't get enough into my trail side. I'll fix that on the next one. Yes. And what it does is it puts you in a better mood when you're walking up to find that ball, which means more likely the next one's going to be a little bit better.
Oh, that's great for the psychology of the game.
Right. I think the thing that makes people quit this game and the thing that drives people nuts when they play this game is when the ball's doing something consistently and they have no idea why. right?
Right.
That is the thing that just drives you batty and makes you insane. And so doing Goldilocks drills and actually hitting bad shots on purpose is a really good way to learn.
I think so too.
Yeah, I always tell the story. My wife's a college golf coach in LA here, and she had a player who developed the shanks a week before conference last year, or 2 years ago, I believe it was. And so she sends this player in to see me just to see if we can find something, because she had two hosel rockets around, which would make the triple bogey, and then she would lose it from there. So she comes into my garage where I have just a net, like, and a swing catalyst and some turf to hit off of, and she's hitting balls, and then she hits one that she hits close to the hosel and it kind of shoots off to the right, and she goes, she gets this like scared response. Oh my god, there it is, the dreaded. Oh my god, and like.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, it's okay. Like, it just hit the net. No one died. We're fine. Like, it's all good. And then we worked on some things with a force plate and figured out how to stop it. And she was hitting balls perfectly. The one thing she was doing was she was setting up with all her pressure in her heels when she set up. And if all your pressure's in your heels, you have nowhere else to go but to your toes. And so while she swung, she kind of dove towards her toes, obviously, which moves the hosel closer to the ball.
Sure.
So we got her balanced at setup, got her pressure good, and she was hitting perfect shots. She was really happy. And then she was ready to leave, and I was like, wait 1 second. I want you to hit 5 more balls where you rock back on your heels and hit them like you did when you came in. She's like, why would I do that? I've already fixed it. I was like, let's just try it. And she rocked back on her heels, and the third one, she dead rocket shanked, and she went, ha, ha. So before it was, and the third one was, ha. I'm like, you're fixed. You're fine. Go play golf now.
That's awesome. I love that. That's exactly what I think that's missing when it comes to that practice, like you talked about, where like it's the psychology of practice, psychology of missing a shot and losing your mind, and the chemicals go through you, and it's 2 holes later before you actually calm down. And you've actually changed her state and framed that differently, which some people pay thousands of dollars to go see therapists to figure that out. So
Sure.
You figured that out pretty quickly. So
yeah, and I think sports psychology is great. I got a lot of good friends that are sports psychologists, and everyone on tour has a sports psychologist. Like, there's a lot to that. And I mean, I think most of the sports psychologists that I know deal with more off golf course stuff than on golf course stuff, with really good,
for sure.
Like, it's the wife that's doing something, or
Yep.
whatever it is. I mean, I'm sure Rory's sports psychologist has heard a few stories recently about some off golf course shit, but like, to me, like, the mechanics, bad shots is what creates the fear and what creates this psychological response that ends up in anger and all that stuff that ends up in bad play down the road. So to me, if you can create better mechanics or understand your mechanics better, and really, like, with motor skills, the only way to understand things is to feel the ranges of movement. So I always tell people, if you're working on in your golf swing, go to the range and do a Goldilocks drill for it. So, like, if you're working on your right hand grip, you think you're maybe a little too weak with your right hand. Well, go hit 5 shots really weak, go hit 5 shots really strong, and go hit 5 shots in the middle, and just evaluate it. And often I'll do that when I'm teaching a lesson with somebody. I'll be like, I'll do like the 3 things, like 1 bar level. So, if I'm not sure of your maximum pivot into your right side, I'm going to say, I want you to hit a couple like Bubba Watson, like lift that left heel off the ground, get way behind it, hit me 5 shots. Yeah. And I want you to hit like 5 stack and tilt, like stack on top of it, feel like you're not moving to the right at all, and then hit me 5 in the middle. And then I'll ask them, if you had to play golf in one of those 3 ways, which way would you do it? And most of the time they're like, oh, that's easy. Like, the middle one's way better. Like, yeah. I chunk the shit out of it when I get way right here. I hit some thin kind of weird shots there. It's a little better, but the middle's the best. And I was like, okay, so way to the right's terrible. To the left is okay, and the middle's the best. Okay, well, let's try to find between the front and the middle where that might sit. And you can kind of work your way through it that way to get to where you need to be. And I feel like doing drills like that often on the driving range doesn't allow for those big shifts where you like lose it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Like, and that's the thing that I found in my own game too, using this stuff, technology combined with a good practice strategy, is you don't have to be on the driving range for 4 hours trying to find it. Yeah. You're out there for 15, 20 minutes and you do your work, and you're good. You know where you need to be.
Yeah.
And then you don't get off for as long. So you don't have those big stretches where you play horrible golf for 2 months or whatever before you can find it again. So I think all of those things are pretty important.
No, I think those are great. Like, I use that Goldilocks theory and that program for pitching. So if someone's
Yeah,
having trouble with their yardages, it's okay. We're going to try to go to 50, but let's hit one at 60 first, then 40, find the
yeah,
middle. And it
yeah.
really does work well.
It worked really well for sure.
Now, couple fancy terms going on in golf instruction now, kinematics versus kinetics. So we've
Yep.
got how the body moves for our kinematics and then the resulting, let's call it swing cat data for our
Sure.
kinetics. So we don't have a force plate at the club yet. It's definitely something I'd like to introduce because obviously it's going to help. But give me some ideas on what my members could do in practice to improve those force plate numbers without having that feedback. Do you have any drills that you really like with optimizing movement?
Yeah, well, to me, I mean, I think the most important thing is to nail down your maximum pressure shift into the trail side and what it should be for you. So I would say to start with doing that drill, like that Goldilocks drill I just talked about. So try to move off of it as much as you can, get as much pressure into your trail side you can, hit 5 or 10 balls. Do the same thing where you try to stack on your left side and hit 5 or 10, and then try to stay very centered, like, to stay in the barrel, whatever,
Yep.
Hogan kind of deal. Hit 5 or 10 that way, and then evaluate where did I strike it the best? Where was my speed the best? Sometimes, I mean, if you guys do have access to a launch monitor, it's good to see a launch monitor for that, because sometimes one of those conditions will produce a lot of speed. But if you miss the face a couple times, you might not think it's optimal, even though it's actually moving the club a lot faster. So having some kind of a launch monitor when you do a drill like that is actually really good, because it could, I mean, if you miss the face a couple times, but you produce a lot more speed, you might say, there might be something there, even though I just got to figure out a few things, how to make some more solid contact or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's a really good drill. And the other thing that I think is super important to realize is like ground reaction force measurement technology is getting a lot cheaper and a lot less hard to find, basically.
And portable.
Portable, totally. So I mean, we've been just introduced a new system. They're portable pressure plates, but they're very tiny. Like you can fold them up and put them in a backpack. They're not that. And then you just need one cable that goes out to a computer, and then off you go, or and a camera, and you're off you go. So, and those right now are retailing for, I believe, like $3,000. So they're, I mean, for people that are buying launch monitors for, $15,000, $20,000 and stuff like that. So and that's all you really would need, is that and a net in your backyard, and you could dial in your right pressure shift very often, do some good practice. And I actually really like practicing into a net for a lot of people, because it takes away the ball flight, which can sometimes, like, a lot of times you react to the ball flight, and I've seen people on the range where there's a right to left wind and the ball's always going right, and they're making adjustments in their swing. I was like, that's not your swing. The ball, like, so it's almost better to practice sometimes just into a net, and
You're right.
getting some basic feedback from a launch monitor maybe, and so yeah, it is, and I feel like it's going to keep happening. It happened in launch monitors, right? Think about when TrackMan first came out; it was $30,000 for a TrackMan, and like 2 guys in Toronto had one, and now you can get yourself one of those. What are they called? The GC2s for what? I mean, they're $6,000 or something like that, or 8,000, or like so. The prices, I feel like the launch monitor or the ground reaction force tools are following the same thing as launch monitors. There's 2 or 3 companies now that do it, and we're starting to work on kind of cheaper solutions, or solutions that are a little more affordable to get more people access to it. Because I think it's just such a valuable tool that the more people that can use it, the better.
I totally agree. I think it is a very valuable tool to find out, like you said, finding people's baselines. Now, when you work with players, do you, other than that, the pressure shift to the right, to the trail side, when do you get into pressure shift to the lead side? And then what do you do when you're on your lead side?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I mean the downswing is 0.2 something of a second. And so to me, most of the work that I generally do is related to either getting them set up better or getting a better backswing load to allow them to do other stuff in their downswing. Like, it has to be a very elite athlete where you start talking about downswing stuff, because it's very difficult to do. Like, I was getting into it with when I worked with Bryson DeChambeau last year. We talked about staying taller as long as he could in transition, so that he could kind of go down and up. And really, I only talked about transition with him, and he's probably one of the most elite athletes I've ever worked with, and I never even got into downswing stuff. So
Right.
um, most of what I do is to set you up in a position where you can then be athletic and produce the forces you need to produce. So that's generally what I'll do in a lesson. And then we'll probably, like, if I think there's something in your downswing that's not working properly in terms of the ground reaction forces you're using, I'll give you a drill or an exercise to do where, if you do that drill over and over again, you come back and see me in 2 weeks, hopefully it will improve. Like, you're just going to change
Right.
the whole motor pattern. To me, giving downswing cues, like to tell you to try to, I don't know, push through your lead foot at club parallel in the downswing, man, there's just what we know about, there's all these motor learning studies where like a light turns on and you have to hit a button once you see the light turn on. And from the time that you see the light go into your brain, you have to turn it around and produce some muscle activity. That we call that the neuromechanical delay. So the delay between you perceiving something and producing a result is about the same time that it takes to do a downswing.
Right.
So
Forget about a golf club and lining up to a ball. You can't even push a button in time.
exactly. So those old, when they used to say, remember Tiger would stop his swing halfway down, like, oh, it was way earlier than that he decided he was going to stop his swing. So
Oh, I think it was in his pre-shot routine. He knew he was going to do that
he knew
sometimes.
he was going to do that. Yeah. So I feel like golf instruction like if I'm worried about something that's happening in your downswing, I'm going to try to set you up better, either in the backswing at setup or an early transition to just make it happen. Let you be an athlete and make it happen.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, this is where like doing drills and like I do a lot of band drills. So I'll give you a band and I'll say, attach it to a golf club and tie it around a golf cart or something like that. And just, do this drill for a while, like do, I don't know, as many reps as you can. And then let's see if that leaks over into your golf swing. And a lot of times it does. What I'm finding is an awesome tool now I've used it with a bunch of people, is like a slide board. Those
Yeah.
like very slippery boards, and there's two blocks on either side, and you put the little booties on, you kind of slide back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very valuable tool to accomplish some really things we need to accomplish in a downswing if we want to
Yeah.
hit it further and create some efficient contact. So I'm using things like slide boards and bands and just saying, go off and work on this for a couple of weeks and come back and let's see what happens. And most of the time it changes. It makes positive changes. So
It
to
does,
me,
and I've stolen a lot of those from you. I've seen your videos that you put out there, and I've used them. I think they're great.
perfect. Steal
I
away.
think
That's why we put them out there.
exactly. Thanks very much. I love it. I appreciate it. I'm almost out of time here. I want to wrap this up. I want to say thank you, but if you're back in Toronto, I'd love to have you come and talk to my members. I'll get the guys from Swing Cat Canada to lend me their plates, and maybe you can help us out.
Perfect. Would love to. I'll be home late July, kind of early August. So if there's some time that works for you there, let's make it happen.
Love it. That's phenomenal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.